is to remove the contents. You have that amendment ready, Jenna? To remove the contents of 219 and replace it with House Bill 2637, which is the rural hospital bill that failed on the floor the other day, and it would be minus the Bryce amendment.
Piece of paper.
Oh, they're stapled together.
Piece of paper, you show it.
Oh, it's this kind of, I like this, or just crimped.
Oh,
I like
that's
that.
nice.
Okay, yes, ma'am. You want someone other than, you want me to make that motion to pass out 219, and then we're going to do it.
No, we don't need to do that,
Oh,
just to remove the content.
Okay, make a motion to remove the contents of 219.
Okay, does everybody have a copy? So, committee, we're kind of doing this a little bit backwards because a motion has not been made yet, which Representative Epley will do here in a moment. What you have before you is Senate Bill 219. You will notice that page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4 are actually crossed, and page 5 are crossed out, and it inserts the rural hospital bill. And correct me, make sure that I'm correct on this, it does not include the Bryce amendment. Is that right, Jenna? All right, Representative Epley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move that the committee today take the substitute for Senate Bill 219 as presented here and pass it out favorably for passage as you just outlined, with the removal of the first 5 pages of Senate Bill 219 and inserting the contents of the original 2637.
You've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Reese. Discussion, comments on the bill. Representative Barth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know we added, and we had a majority for the 35 miles on the distance of not having any competing hospital for rural hospitals so that they wouldn't go out of business. I think our overall goal is to keep these rural hospitals in business to provide services. So I guess my question would be, is there a more fair distance or something to that extent that would keep that from happening, where you don't have a new hospital pop up and all of a sudden you've got a hospital existing going out of business? And I don't know if there's something there, because I know this was a big issue and something I think we all care about, especially people live in the rural areas. Having that access is important.
It was an issue for one hospital, and actually that hospital had plenty of time to have that conversation with the Hospital Association last fall through the first part of the session before it even got to this, and apparently they chose not to. Representative Bryce, representing that particular hospital, brought the amendment forward, which is his right to do, and it passed, but then the bill failed on the floor. And it failed on the floor because of the Bryce amendment. And there's a possibility that the unintended consequences would be that we will affect anywhere from 2 to 4 other hospitals in the state negatively. So that's why we're not putting the Bryce amendment on it. Does that help? Representative Bryce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Representative Barth, for that comment. The amendment that I proposed on the floor, let me just say, it's almost an unwinnable situation that I find myself in, because I have a local hospital that feels they will be hurt if this amendment is not on the bill. On the other hand, there may be other hospitals around the state who will be hurt or delayed if the amendment is on the bill. And I would say I'm not going to reoffer my amendment and I am working with the KHA and the local hospital authorities to try and work out the differences. I don't believe, even if we did attach an amendment to this bill, it would survive past conference. And I think we have to do something for the rural hospitals. We have to do something for the rural communities. And so I believe this bill, as it exists, would be the best path forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Bryce. Representative Reese.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, this is a question asking for clarification. This bill helps current hospitals from hopefully to help them from closing, or rural hospitals that have already closed. This does not create the ability to build a new hospital.
Right, this was for the facilities out there that had right-sized themselves prior to the federal government passing the rural hospital legislation. What they did not do was grandfather in any that had already done that right-sizing. And right-sizing is the easiest way to explain what the rural hospitals have had to do in order to stay designated as a hospital.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Representative Ellis and then Representative Berquist. Nope. Okay, Representative Berquist.
Yes, I just want to thank the representative for his explanation of the presentation of the amendment the other day and his reason for supporting the bill today. Thank you.
Committee, are there further discussion, comments on the bill? Representative Blacks.
Well, I'm kind of torn between this too, and because I have what is probably a good example in my district of operating as a rural hospital, even though prior to when they were doing it. And I guess I can see both sides of that competition for additional reimbursement for a hospital that's already struggling is, and they're 10 miles apart. A similar situation would probably be in Winfield and Ark City, exactly the same thing, although one of them is not operating like that, but it could be. I don't have a good answer to this, but I am concerned that I'd hate to think that as much as I want the rural hospital concept, I'm 110% behind that. I think that's, whether we like that or not, it's going to be a wave of the future. And ironically, I said this 8 years ago when I knew less than I know now, which was surprising. But basically,
We're not sure how you do that, Representative,
but I don't want to see another hospital, and in some ways we end up maybe picking winners and losers in the particular case that in my district, because one of them's already operating that. So I see Representative Bryce's concern. It's also my concern, and but it puts us all in a bad position. Certainly, having that bill killed on the floor is going to wipe out all opportunity for anything hospital and all over. So do we go with one that may be, or two that's right in a close competition conflict, or look at the other 5 or 6 that we may be benefiting across the state? So I don't know yet how I'll vote, but it is a tough situation particularly for me, and I'm sure certainly more so for Representative Bryce.
well, and Representative, if I understand it correctly, it would not have an impact on those 2 hospitals that you just mentioned. And that's from the experts, and I'm not the expert.
I know, I'm not either, and I hope not. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. Representative Epley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I appreciate all the comments around the committee table here today. And but I do think you need to bear in mind, if you look at the status quo and think these are 2 hospitals that are going to compete like critical access hospitals, that's, is a very valid concern, very reasonable thing to have an amendment that came forward. But we really don't fully understand in rural emergency hospitals the impact they're going to have on the bottom lines and how they're going to affect employment and how large they're going to be and so forth. And I would venture to say, trying to take the more positive attitude on this, that it's comparing apples to oranges. And I really think that having an REH within 10 or 15 miles of another hospital that's already functioning as a critical access hospital, and this area already has its own demographic to serve, it may provide a lot better access because it's really focusing on emergency care, and there's very little inpatient care. I think up to 4 beds in the original legislation, and a lot of that is swing beds. So I'm not so sure that it's going to be as big of a competitive concern as has been outlined, trying to provide cover for those of you that are looking at this with the conflict that appears. So I just want to bear that in mind. This is rural emergency hospitals. We're not putting in force other critical access hospitals, and there's a difference. And we still have a lot to learn about the revenue stream of these, like I said. So I think the net effect is that I can support this without the Bryce amendment, and I'd like to see it go forward. Thank you.
I know there was some confusion. I had individuals that were confused between a critical access hospital versus our emergency room hospitals, and this here only addresses the emergency hospitals. The critical access hospitals do have a 35-mile limit, and that is put on by the feds, not by the state. Representative Ellis.
Thank you. This will directed towards Dr. Epley. You said a 4-bed limit. I thought the rule emergency hospitals could not have maybe just an overnight stay. Is that true?
That is correct. Yes, it's overnight stays till they can move on to another level of care.
Okay. And they get paid by the government to be a rural emergency hospital.
And I don't fully understand the revenue stream, but it is a different revenue means of reimbursement. It's going to be different than critical access reimbursement. And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Ellis.
Sorry, one small one. So there would be no swing beds at all in a hospital then if you go this way?
Representative, I'm unclear on that. I was understanding you could have a net 4 beds, but I don't know that that includes swing beds or not. Chairwoman may know about that better than I do in the RH legislation. I'd have to look back at the original bill from 2 years ago to see how it's worded.
Thank you.
We're not sure that we have an answer to that on the swing beds. On the swing beds. Well, and other people aren't sure yet without doing some further checking. Further discussion, comments on the bill? I do want to thank Representative Bryce for being willing to work with us here, and I know it's a very, very difficult decision for him. I know that he was worried going up against his chair on an amendment, and I told him repeatedly, don't worry about that. That's your right as a legislator to offer an amendment if you choose so. And you were representing your district, and I think you did a really great job with that. So thank you very much for working with us here today. All right, Representative Epley, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move my motion and close. Thank you.
You've heard the motion by Representative Epley, seconded by Representative Reese, to remove the contents of Senate Bill 219, replace said contents with House Bill 2637. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion carries. This is all that we have to do here today, folks. Tomorrow, we do have a pretty sizable committee. You will hear me start out that committee meeting with very firm and strong instructions of decorum, silence, no outbursts. I don't care which side it's on or who it's from. They will be removed from the room. So if anyone's got questions on that, feel free to take and give me a call. We will have the speakers on tomorrow out in the hall in case there's an overflow in the room, so that everybody would have an opportunity to hear what's going on in here as well. So we're adjourned till tomorrow at 1:30.